What does your job ask you to hide from the customers? Also, at the hotel I worked at, if a guest found a stray bed bug, all staff were instructed to neither confirm nor deny that it was an actual bed bug. Word games were not fun. My last job was a white labeled help desk. You had to hide the fact that your company existed at all from the customer. You had to pretend you were from whatever company the customer was using for their IT. As a tattoo artist, oftentimes apprentices at the end of their apprenticeship will start to tattoo paying customers, walk-ins, and for a few tattoo shops, the apprenticeships are much shorter than they need to be. So if you're getting tattooed but someone who seems to be young or they seem inexperienced, they probably are, and they're probably still in their apprenticeship. But the shop will tell you they're actual artists. Do your research when thinking about getting a tattoo, and don't be afraid to wait months, or even years for the right artist for you. It'll save you from really crappy tattoo. MD in pathology. We are the ones who give the bottom line diagnosis and staging for most cancers and many other diseases. In a weird way, the patient isn't our customer, their doctor is. We are telling them what the diagnosis is and what evidence we have to support it. Anything we say can trigger them to do a whole new treatment plan or a bunch more tests, so we have to be careful not to mention random things that we see unless we want them acting in it. For example, we might think these megakaryocytes are a little small and I see a few of them bunched together here, but it's only in a couple spots. If we bring it up, it might seem more significant than that, and trigger a distracting question about one disease process when we know that's not the actual problem. A big part of the training is learning how to communicate the truth without clouding it with the truth. Unfortunately, this often means that the reports are almost unintelligible to the patients because they are not the intended audience of the report really. A good histo report is like a literary masterpiece. The restroom. I work at a small privately owned pet store. It's the most trashy store ever, and the bathroom is a room with a toilet, water heater and buckets. To use it you have to through the back room, which is where we keep the rats and stuff. Basically it's employees only. Well, one lady asked to use the restroom. We let her and she stole a turtle that was being soaked in the sink on her way out. We caught her stuffing it in her bra but she got away. Now if a customer asks if we have a bathroom I have to say no. Who the frick steals a turtle? You'll be amazed at how good construction workers become at hiding flaws. It's quite nearly a part of the job description and a large reason why so much of construction effort is put towards cosmetics. Beyond the fact that most people just don't want to be looking at a bunch of rough in work that's functionally the same but aesthetically atrocious. I concur. I was a finisher for some years. Painting, staining. So in other words, making your brand new piece of crap house that you paid way too much for look nice. Amazing how many homeowners get duped or just plainly have idea what they are doing or agreeing to. I've worked at 2 fast food restaurants in my life. At each one, the only time that food safety protocol was followed or enforced was the day that the health inspector was coming to grade us. It's amazing how common this is. We sell software and we have a page that has instructions for setting it up Linux servers, but that's basically all we know about the OS and as much as any of us actually care to learn it. If asked, the going policy is that our Linux specialist is out this week, but we'll totally refresh what we know by going over the page with you. Meanwhile, most of us Linux users are thinking, crap, they actually mentioned us. I work in a deli and bakery currently. All of our food is from frozen and they want me to call in fresh baked in store every day. Dude, it was frozen for 3 months, thawed for an hour and then cooked. It's no better than anything else you get from the freezer section, and in many cases the freezer section is higher quality stuff. Sounds like Tesco. I recently started working at a fairly fancy resort and we just finished renovating a floor of the hotel, and a lot of the new furniture had Argentine cowhide as the leather for it. We were instructed to tell guests that it was a fake synthetic material just in case. At BK the food is frozen and gets warmed up in an automatic grill, and we are told to tell the customer that the meat is always fresh and there. The last time I ate at Burger King was about 4 or 5 years ago in a food court. I ordered a cheeseburger and watched as an employee literally pulled a burger out of a drawer and shoved it in the microwave. I don't know why, but I couldn't stop laughing to myself. Not now, but back when I worked as an aide at a nursing home, we were forbidden from telling patients we were short-staffed. We were, and it was the fault of administration because they were trying to save money, but literally the residents would be yelling at us because their shower was late or whatever, and we were supposed to just act like it was because we were lazy. We weren't allowed to tell them it was because I had the entire wing by myself. The administrator was sick of having angry family members calling to complain and decided we should take the brunt of it instead. Cell phone store. Customers returned perfectly good phones all the time. We were told to sell the boxes as brand new, first time activations, and purposefully leave out the fact that they had, in fact, already been activated and taken home within 48 hours. I'd be pissed if I bought a phone full price and it was even slightly used. I let those phones get dusty and would never sell them just to spite that crappy butt policy. Our sales prices are just normal prices. Had to stock some pressure washers a few months back. They're $199 each when scanned. The next day I have to put up more. Scan them and they show up as $279 each. Couple weeks later they're on sale for $199 each. There's a guy locally who owns a furniture store and every one of his commercials ends with "come to so and so furniture," where we don't mark it up just to mark it down and call it a sale. I didn't know that was a practice until his commercials started airing. Let's just say our technology doesn't come close to meeting its process guarantees, but we can give a customer a phone book sized excuse of why it's their fault. I can't tell which of our vendors this is. Out of both healthcare facilities I've worked at, they both made a big deal about not expressing how short-handed we are to patients. Same at mine. I told them anyway because they wouldn't risk firing a great employee when they are already short-staffed. Not in my current job, but when I worked in retail, we had to process waste food off the floor. Waste food being fresh items that had been reduced on their use-by date and then wasted or removed from our stock level. Because the company didn't want customers to see how much food was wasted, it was a lot. We could process damaged items on floor or items that had been taken out of the fridges and dumped elsewhere by customers, but not out of date or end of life products. We did trial giving our waste food to a local homeless shelter, but head office stopped it because it wasn't viable, which I took to mean there wasn't any money in it for head office. So I pushed them and they then said they were worried there might be lawsuits against the company for giving out of date food to people. We could accidentally poison somebody, etc. I'm talking trolleys of food. Liquids were poured away and written off. Food was placed in bin bags and thrown in huge bins around the back of the store that were locked to stop people digging through it. Some of my colleagues would pour bleach or industrial strength floor cleaner over it too. I had a problem with wasting so much food and thought the excuses head office gave for not allowing us to donate was rubbish. It was all about the bottom line for them. The company itself makes a lot of noise about how environmentally friendly and green they are and how much work they do for charity, when behind the scenes it wasn't like that at all. They had a really crappy attitude towards their staff in general too. I was glad to get out of there. Food retail is the worst retail sector to work in. Their reason for not donating is BS. At least in the US there are laws to prevent companies from being sued over donated food. I'm a cashier and everyone needs to keep the override card over a mysterious button that is next to a till at customer service. It's attached to a big red light and has a wire connecting it to the phone. Nobody knows what it does and we don't want to find out. That sounds an awful lot like the 911 button that summons police in the case of robbery that many restaurants have. Restaurant employee here. Staff is almost always sick because we get in huge trouble if we take a sick day. Not uncommon to have servers or food expediters throwing up while at work. Strep throat, colds, other contagious illnesses are always going around the workplace. Mice. We have mice. All my past food service jobs have had mice. Assume any restaurant you eat at has a mouse problem. If there's an issue with medication, too many pills, not enough, wrong, we're not allowed to tell them. We just have to leave the room with the meds and call our boss to fix it. It's pretty easy for them to figure out what's going on as it's kind of obvious, but we're not actually allowed to say that an error has been made. I had a job which claimed all of their dressings were homemade, so we had to go to the back to fill the couple that were not. Also, they would say that none of the desserts were frozen by keeping the freezer for the desserts and everything else above the standard temp for a commercial freezer. Also they would say that none of the desserts were frozen by keeping the freezer for the desserts and everything else above the standard temp for a commercial freezer. Whoa, that's layers of not right. So years ago I was involved in developing and deploying a system for a chain of jewelry stores. They offer a guarantee that they will buy back your piece for whatever you paid for it. This makes sense, because jewelry doesn't really lose value, and you're not taking inflation into account. Also, most people don't return their jewelry. Long story short, they go live, and the very first day we get a ticket because the customer bought a ring for $5,000. But the certificate of value printed out that it was worth only $4,000. We dig into the database and the code and sure enough, the database says $4,000. The cert is correct. The problem was with the salesperson. He should have overridden the value with the actual sales value. Anyway, the lesson learned is that even if you get a 25% discount on jewelry, you're not even starting to cut into their profits. Everything. Where do I even start? Really, the only thing I'm allowed to tell the customers is this spiel about the place and where the restroom is. I really wish I could help people more than I can, but management actually trained me to actively hide things from people. Literally, I'm supposed to make the customers' lives harder. If I don't do it to management's approval, they go and hide even more things. Then again, I work in an escape room. They had us in the first half, not gonna lie. Current job I'm told to lie about the failed maintenance and budget cuts in my job. At my old job at Walmart they told me to lie about the malfunctioning fridges and cooled produce that would sit out for 8+ hours before being put into the coolers. I knew it. Sometimes my milk goes bad within a day of being opened and I knew it was because proper refrigeration was not happening at the store level. When I worked at McDonald's back when I was in high school, there was a time I accidentally filled up a medium soda cup instead of a small for a drive-through order. I was about to dump it when my manager takes the medium cup from my hand and poured it into a small cup, and it fit perfectly. The small and medium cups are the same volume, just different shapes. They do that at Applebee's too. Buy a large beer, you're buying a small in a longer glass. My friends asked why I only ordered the small, and when I showed my friends, the wait staff had a hard time explaining why they were spending more on what I was getting for half the price. At my job we handle VA disability claims. Sometimes we get calls from veterans asking about the status of their claim, but we cannot tell them. They are redirected to their regional VA office manager for that. We also cannot contact the veterans when there's a problem with their claim or if their medical provider is unwilling to comply and sending us medical records to support the claim. Not saying anything bad about you, but that is fricked up. Stories like this about veterans always pee me off so much. They did their part in protecting the country, with the understanding they would receive certain benefits, but always someone finds one way or another to frick them. Like I said, not trying to bash you, because you have a job to do. Well, this is kind of weird. So, my family owned a small bodega and across from us was another bodega. We had this ripped up blue chair where the counter was, so my grandma, mommy, my bro could sit in between bagging stuff. Every time this old man, middle-aged man or his wife came in, is realized my mom would slowly lower the chair to the ground so they couldn't see. I was a kid and thought it was a game so I would help. Didn't realize it was weird until I became a teenager. I asked my mom, who was reluctant to tell me that they stole the chair from that old man's bodega when they fired her before I was born. I find it hilarious. In case you're wondering, the old man, middle-aged man and his wife, the old man's son and daughter-in-law, weren't that petty and came in to buy stuff they didn't have at their store. They were also friends with my grandpa. If I was the other bodega owner, it'd totally come by just to watch your mom hide the chair. It's hilarious. Your fancy catered event? That's tap water. Bonus if your event is done by a company based in a university because your food is probably the same food that is being served in the cafeteria. I work with artist bands. On the last tour I had, I couldn't tell fans that the artist just didn't want to meet people at the bus or if she was or wasn't on the bus. She had a paid for meet and greet, so if they really wanted to meet her they should have paid for it rather than wait outside near our home on the road. I think that's reasonable. Whether her meet and greets are paid or not, A lot of venues now have security screening, and that might prevent or discourage anyone with Selena Dimmerbag, Daryl, Christina Grimmie, John Lennon type ideas. It's just good sense to meet fans in the most controlled environment available. Telling clients that there was nothing that could have been done after their pet is euthanized. Pets are often euthanized to be spared after long negligence from their owners not knowing signs that are actually emergencies. And also, pets hate being euthanized without you there. They are usually terrified and seek you for comfort. Don't leave your pets alone in their final minutes. A lot. I work at a pet resort that has overnight boarding, day camp and grooming. We hide basically everything from the clients, but try to make it look like we're very upfront. Say Scruffy comes in for an overnight trial that we offer and he is 100% freaking the frick out, screaming his lungs out, trying to break down the door, refusing to eat and terrified. On their report card we would just put something cliche like, "Oh, Scruffy was amazing. What a good, sweet pup. Can't wait to see him again." I hate it. These people shouldn't board their dog and they should be told that. This is incredibly stressful for some dogs and it's heartbreaking to watch. We also get in a lot of untrained rowdy dogs who jump all over us, pull us down the halls, mouth us, scratch us and leave us generally bruised and fricked up. But again, we have to tell them how great their dog did. And of course we get dogs that are afraid and respond with aggression, or who are cage aggressive. No warning sometimes. Even sweet dogs who let you pet them have turned in the bilk of an iron given warning bites. I've been pinned against a wall by a 160-pound Newfoundland who I could do nothing against to get away. He also would jump on us when we took him out into the yard to try to hump us. 160 pounds of muscle who's taller than you, grabbing your shoulders and trying to hold you in place while he humps you. As you can imagine, not a lot of people want to deal with that for minimum wage, so we get mostly 18-22 years olds who last about 2 months. These kids don't care if your dog has water, or pee their bed, or threw up and rolled in it. Half the time I come in, none of the dogs have water. This is a $2.5 million facility that is part of a larger corporation that has multiple facilities and is marketed towards the wealthy as a high-class pet resort. This is the best facility in at least 200 miles in any direction, and I would never board my dog here. It's just dogs in cages that are called suites. It's the same as your dog chilling in the pound. My so was a night stalker at the same grocery store for 6 years until recently. We moved. He got a better job. I felt pretty sheepish for always taking for granted the way the shelves are supposed to be all organized with the products facing the same direction. No gaps in the shelves, etc. That, apparently, is called facing the store. After taking pallets full of products and stocking the shelves, the night crew have to make them look all nice and neat. Thing was, they ordered a ridiculous amount of backstock all the time. Myso and, maybe 3-4 other dudes, one of which was insanely obese and another had a limp and was pushing 60, would unload up to 1,000 piece trucks by hand every couple of weeks, with anywhere from 200 to 500 piece trucks every other night. I've seen the back room, and it's insane. Piles and piles of products they'll never put on the shelves, and they just keep ordering more. It's disgusting, and it seems endless. I think they do this because they think ordering more products equals more things to sell equals more money. Apparently they're just trying to meet those quotas and not at all paying attention to how much is actually being bought. I have no idea what their logic is on this, but it's clearly freaking madness. And all I could think from then on out was, how many other stores, everywhere, are like this? How much are we really wasting? But maybe this is an anomaly, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't. I thought being sheepishly surprised at the behind the scenes of placing the products was something to think about. Learning about the massive backstock was something else entirely. Most grocery stores don't have a huge backstock area because it's cheaper to let your vendors store the products and order as needed. Our emotions and how we really feel about you. I answer 911 calls. You have no idea how many calls I take where I am keeping someone on mute, so they can't hear me, while talking hella crap about them. The affluent a-hole who dialed 911 because a homeless person is sleeping in the park, and that's against the rules. Dude, it's 0330. Why are you walking through the park? That girl who wants us to arrest her boyfriend because he called her a S. No threats, no physical violence, just getting called a S. The family who was freaking out because there were coyotes in their front yard, and they snapped at one of their kids when they went out to pet them. No one was bit. Just a nice warning snap. Cats and trees. Turkeys and trees. Spilled apple juice at a dentist. My tummy hurts. Okay, where are you? It's like. So all I need is your address. Okay, but it's like. So give me your address. XCXX. An ambulance is coming, goodbye. I work in banking. There's so much about how we operate that we simply can't tell you for security purposes. Which of course leads to a lot of off people because they don't understand why they can't have a certain service provided for them, or why we may have to refuse a seemingly simple request. For example, hey, my mom asked me to deposit money into her account but I don't remember her account number. Note, I work at a credit union, so this may not even be an option at a bank. Policies can vary wildly between institutions. Can you just look it up? Yes, I can type her name or social security number into the system and find the account. But I have to say no. For the security of the member or customer, we cannot confirm that someone has an account. What if you're phishing? The last thing we want is to compromise someone's bank account info or identity by trying to do what seems like a totally reasonable request. And there's so many more like that. Some of which is required by law and some of which may be institutional policy. But for the most part, anything about someone else's information or anything about how operate is largely concealed by necessity. And I understand the necessity, but it doesn't make it any easier when people are screaming at you over crap beyond your control. Avoid retail at all costs, kids. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.